So this this is not a elongated article like I normally will read an article, but there's a short blurb under here. So you're gonna see an activist who has chained herself to a fence. And so she's the reason why this woman is doing this. I already know before I even saw why she was doing this. Now, anybody that's been really following the George Floyd case, just I was following it for just 40 minutes of in. And already I felt like what they were basically doing was setting the stage to build a case in defense for the officer that knelt on George Floyd's neck, to make it look as though that he was well within his right to do what he did, and that the hold that he put him in was legal. One of the lawyers said that the hold was perfectly legal. And the other thing that I noticed about the trial, the key witnesses, one of the men spoke on the news, and I believe it was a newscaster that was basically trying to see how they could critique how the case has been going so far. And the way they're looking at it, they're trying to lighten everything and smooth everything over. And I fear, and I'm going to say this now, I fear that they're going to try to build a strong enough defense to exonerate Derek Chauvin. And if you really follow this case, you'll see what I'm talking about. Because it basically says here that activist chains herself outside of U.S. court during Derek Chauvin's case, his trial. And when it at the bottom, it basically reads that the activist has chained herself to the security fence, and it goes into the why. Outside of Minneapolis court, where the trial of the police officer charged with killing George Floyd is underway. The defense have been trying to gaslight the world and tell us that we didn't see what we actually saw when Derek Chauvin knelt on George Floyd's neck. This is said by Kiaya Hurt, who spent the night outside in protest after chaining herself on Monday evening, because she's been following the case. I've been following it, and I know why she's doing it. Other people should be there with her, and I'm like floored at some of the accusations that some of the lawyers in defense for Derek Chauvin have been saying. It's crazy. The whole world, national TV saw what we saw, but they're making it now so that even when you see something, they want you to scratch your head and question, did you actually see what you saw? The other thing it says, it goes on, at the intersection where Floyd has died under the knee of Chauvin on May 25th of last year, tributes are piling up, and a makeshift memorial honors the memory of the 46-year-old black man whose death sparked this outrage around across the United States. What I'm fearing is that they're trying to find a way to lighten his sentence or either get him exonerated. And we've seen a lot of the officers, I think 1, 2, 3 is too many, have been exonerated for killing black males, black females, and they make you question Did you see what you see? You're questioning your sanity. They want you to question whether did you see what you saw? Even though we all saw it, are you sure you saw that? The other thing is the more witnesses. Now, I'm going to reiterate, try to do the best that I can here because I know everybody is not a lawyer. Everybody's not, maybe not following this case as close, but now that this is happening, they might start looking at it, from time to time and really looking at it. Take a look at this man right here. He basically, when he is in court, this lawyer here, he's a defense attorney. When he's in court, he looks so unempathetic to what is going on. It's not even funny. And that's in the words of, it's the attitudes in their body language when people come up there as a witness. They had the MMA fighter. They had the woman, the young lady who was 17 at the time, and she took video of the incident. And when they have them to testify, they show real emotion. They're real people, and they're real candid and honest about how they felt. But the defense lawyers are so critical of all the witnesses. From what I was hearing, the more neighborhood people come up, the more it weakens the case because you got all these neighborhood people. And they go more on emotion rather than on, was he doing the protocols? What time did this happen? They're nitpicky. Why didn't you talk to the officer? Why didn't you do this? It's almost like it's as if you didn't do what you were supposed to do, or you were intervening in a legal arrest. And now they're questioning you and your sanity and whether you shouldn't have even said or done anything. And it's getting to the point to where they're making it seem like they're weakening all of the testimonies to make it seem like it's more based on emotion rather than facts. That, yes, we saw this man die, and what they did to him was cruel and it was vicious, and it didn't look like it was legal. It looked like it was more personal, and it didn't look like it was something that should have been done, that there could have been another way they could have put him in the back of the car, with his handcuffs, and just closed the door and then took him to the police station and did whatever it is that they do, rather than have him on the ground and putting him in that hold like they did. And so they're making this situation look as though that it was legal. They were following the rules. They were doing their job. They were following the protocol. It's been done, that same hold's been done somewhere else. I heard one of the guys saying, oh, it was done somewhere else. Just totally unempathetic to the lives of other human beings. It just seems so disgusting to me. And so the reason why this lady and anybody else should be looking at this, what I fear is that if they find any reason to let this officer go, we think we saw a riot before. Notice they already have the courthouses set up, prepared for their decision. Whenever you see that, chances are they may possibly find some reason to lighten that sentence or either exonerate that officer. And I don't think anybody's really, really looking at the ramifications and what could happen after all of this, because I know this may not seem related, but it is related in some ways. You're looking at people who they're in an which there's other cities and other places that have experienced similar, or if not the same, or worse incidences such as these, or I would say similar incidences we've seen, um, where police officers have killed and somehow they lighten their sentence or they get exonerated. And I believe they have a lot of protection. And this could set off a shockwave of violence. Already, violence is rising. We have, a lot of, you know, race killings and, killings, people who are mentally unstable. And then we have this coronavirus, in which lately they've been saying there could be a possible chance that there could be another surge. And actually, I've heard that the surge is here, and they're really racing to get people vaccinated. And then we've had um, some people who have been going out, and then there's been huge parties, and then there's been a lot of people who have been pretty much on lockdown too long to where they feel like they just want to get out, forget the mask. Some states have rescinded their mask mandate. I believe Arkansas was one of them, as the CDC announced that the surge was here. They were fearing it, but I believe it is here. I heard different earlier today that it was here. And they're worried that there's going to be a takeover with these other variants. With all of that in mind, look at what's going on right here. Already you got people that there's a lot of things happening where you have people that were locked down, people lost jobs, businesses, people are just trying to gather what they have left of their faculties and try to reorganize and adjust to what's going on now. And some places have opened, but we might be looking at having to go back into shelter. But I fear that this could send another shockwave across the world here, like the US even, where it'll spark anger, mass anger, that the court of law allows this officer to walk, simply because people seeing what they saw and they're trying to basically smooth this thing over. Because you notice how they let this thing drag on, and the more they call the witnesses in, what people are gonna say what they feel in their heart. And they're not lawyers, they don't know how all of this goes. All they're gonna do is say what they've seen and what they feel. And when you get in the court of law and you say what you saw, it has to be said. You have to basically be like you're a robot, and you have to say that same thing over and over again. And you have to stick to the facts. And if you start putting too much of your emotion in that incident, then it weakens. The more people come on there and they start going off on these tangents about, oh, I felt sad because what I saw was my cousin, my son, or that could have been my friend around the corner. And real people do feel that way. I'm not saying those are not the right things to say as in general, but when you're in court dealing with these people like this, and they put you in the witness stand, and they start questioning you, they want to ask you about the facts of what you saw and how you felt. They'll ask you, But if you go into too much long drawn out detail to where it sounds like it's a sob story, which this was hard for anybody to see. It was very sensitive and it was very evil. And you can't help but to put some emotion into it. But when you're in court dealing with people who don't have empathy for people of color, who don't look at the situation in the same lens as the people who live in these communities, they want you to get on the witness stand and act as though you're a robot. And if it doesn't come out like that, if it comes off as too, how would I say, too uncredible, is one thing they're trying to go on, and that it doesn't stick to the facts. And if it's something that seems like it's more about your emotions and your feelings rather than this officer was acting within his his circle of his duties, then they're going to make it look like he was doing what he was supposed to be doing. You were watching something. Yes, it was unfortunate, but that's part of the job. That's the way insensitive, unempathetic people look at the whole incident. And they may not have actually been there and looked at it. They look at the video but they don't see the same thing that people with a heart see. People who live in those communities saw. People who knew him. The other thing is, people who knew him, neighborhood people, the more witnesses that come up, how do you not know that this is a friend, somebody you grew up with? You more than likely they're going to tell their side of the story to make it look like he was just some poor innocent guy and they didn't give him a break and they killed him. And that's what a lot of us saw, you know. But when you're dealing with these people in court, it's like dealing with sharks. They just keep biting at you. And if you don't stick to the hardcore facts or what they in their eyes want you to say and do, it's another way to basically let that officer off on a technicality, a lighter sentence, or either exonerate him altogether. And I feel like that's where they're fishing for. And I'm I am in total disagreement with what they're doing. I feel like they're dragging this on so that they can build their case to be stronger and basically make people think twice. Did you really see what you saw? And they ask you questions over and over and over to wear you down and relive that whole horrid event all over again. And that is bad. How could you not feel some type of way? So I'm just pretty much going to leave this video like this. I know it doesn't have a lengthy article to it, but I really feel like this case, they're setting it up. And I believe they put up a barrier, a real sophisticated barrier, so that if protests or something happens when they finally get to the end of this, they can be prepared and they're not going to turn around and say, let's do a retrial. I feel like they want to try to figure out how to get him out of this and exonerate him. And so we're going to have to really, really hope that this doesn't go south to the point to where we see what we saw in 2020, where that outburst of anger just starts hitting everywhere like shock waves. Because this right here, this case, the way they're making people have to scratch their head and say, did you see what you saw? You know, that hole is perfectly legal. Come on now. I'm going to let this go, but this is sad. This is sad. I fear they're just trying to find a way to get this man off. That's what I fear is going to happen. I'm hoping that he is held accountable for what he did, but I'm not surprised if they try to find some kind of loophole to get him to slip through the cracks of this. And I feel like when it comes to people of color, the law, the court of law, sometimes it works, but oftentimes it doesn't work for people of color in the same way it does for others. Thanks for listening.